Hello and welcome to a Bible study with Paul Hart. Today's subject is the coming of the Lord and the end times.
The coming of the Lord and the end times, the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth, study 11. In these studies, we have followed the story through the scriptures and coming to the Revelation for the final fuller details. However, little is said in Revelation of the 1,000-year reign, just 6 verses. In putting this together with the words of Jesus and a number of Old Testament prophets, we get the whole big picture. It will be a wonderful time, which will show what can be done when the kingdom of darkness is removed, and more importantly, when the King of Kings is reigning. The 1,000-year reign. Let's read from Revelation chapter 19 and a few verses from chapter 20 and also Psalm number 2.
Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against the rider on the horse and his army. But the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who had performed the miraculous signs on his behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulphur. And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil, or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked and sealed it over him to keep him from deceiving the nations any more until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony for Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who have part in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. I will proclaim the decree of the Lord. He said to me, "You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will rule them with an iron scepter. You will dash them to pieces like pottery."
The 1,000-year reign starts and finishes with 2 massive wars in Israel, bookends as it were. The dragon, the devil or Satan, and his kingdom of evil rulers are bound and removed to the abyss for the whole 1,000-year period. Just imagine that. That evil pressure is gone for that living in that period. The resurrected believers, having resisted the 7 heads of evil through all human history, called the beast, reign with Christ 1,000 years. We are priests of God and Christ, serving for him on the earth in this period. He will give us work to do. The whole earth is Christ's inheritance, and he rules with an iron scepter. You got that? An iron scepter. So that's going to be strong. He's going to rule the whole earth. And he's going to do it through the believers and the power and authority that they have distributed all over the world. A time of believers' rewards. Let's read from Luke now, Luke chapter 19 and Revelation chapter 2.
He said, "A man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. 'Put this money to work,' he said, 'until I come back.' But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, 'We don't want this man to be our king.' He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money, in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, "Sir, your miner has earned 10 more." "Well done, my good servant," his master replied. "Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities." The second came and said, "Sir, your miner has earned 5 more." His master answered, "You take charge of 5 cities." To him who overcomes and does my will to the end, I will give authority over the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. He will dash them to pieces like pottery, just as I have received authority from my Father.
Here it's mentioned, overcomers who last till the end of their life will have authority over the nations. As Christ has received this authority, he shares it with us. After Christ returns as king, Revelation 19 in this parable, he calls his servants to account and rewards accordingly in rulership ministry here on earth. Some over 10 cities, others over 5 cities, some lose out, and some for punishment. The purpose, the destruction of all evil, even death. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we'll read there, and Isaiah chapter 65.
But each in his own turn, Christ, the firstfruits, then, when he comes, those who belong to him. Then the end will come, when he hands over the kingdom to God the Father after he has destroyed all dominion, authority and power. For he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death. Never again will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not live out his years. He who dies at 100 will be thought a mere youth. He who fails to reach 100 will be considered accursed.
Resurrections have order. Christ first, the first fruit at his resurrection event, all those at his coming. After all evil ruling dominions are destroyed, the devil is released again, probably to test the new people on earth born in this 1,000 years. Lots and lots of them. That's what happened to us. We were tested and had to believe, and that is going to happen at the end of this 1,000-year reign to the massive number of people living on the earth. Evil nations and hearts follow the devil once again. The last enemy to go into the lake of fire, we are told, is death. This means that in the 1,000-year reign, death is indeed possible, but very long life should be the normal godly experience. Only 100? It's regarded a shame and accursed. Life choices, therefore, were not godly. This is an important point. The 1,000-year reign, death still exists. Christ must reign until all this is accomplished and all enemies are put under his feet. Then he hands the kingdom over to the Father. Now there's a restructuring of the land of Israel. Let's read from Zechariah chapter 14, a fairly lengthy reading, the first 9 verses, and a few other verses as well.
A day of the Lord is coming when your plunder will be divided among you. I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked and the women raped. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations, as he fights in the day of battle. On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, with half of the mountain moving north and half moving south. You will flee by my mountain valley, for it will extend to Azel. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day there will be no light, no cold, or frost. It will be a unique day without daytime or nighttime, a day known to the Lord. When evening comes there will be light. On that day living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half to the eastern sea and half to the western sea, in summer and in winter. The Lord will be king over the whole earth. On that day there will be one Lord, and his name the only name. Then the survivors from all the nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. If any of the peoples of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, they will have no rain.
Evil is poured out against Jerusalem by all the nations' armies at the end of the 7 years. The Lord arrives on the Mount of Olives to fight these armies. There is a massive earthquake and earth movement. The existing fault line will be separated and flatten the mountains of Israel, making a massive valley plain. Living water, a mighty river will flow out from Jerusalem, will be lifted up. You can see the detail in Joel. The Lord King will reign over all the earth, not just Israel. World survivors will come up to worship yearly, to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. It's like camping out. They build booths and camp out. A feast of rest as the earth now rests from evil. This is the last of the 6 feasts of Jehovah to be fulfilled. He's ruling with a rod of iron. Don't come and worship, then no rain on your homeland. Ruling with a rod of iron. Free choice is therefore still available and possible, and when the devil is released, many follow him. The punishment of the people is horrific, but remember the true believers have already left with the Lord Jesus at his coming. The wrath of God period comes to a conclusion and is upon the unbelievers. Then entering into this wonderful 1,000-year period are the small amount of people that are left. And it's up to God to assign what their judgments and beliefs are. The temple is rebuilt. Now in Joel chapter 3, and we'll read some verses there.
The Lord will roar from Zion and thunder from Jerusalem. The earth and the sky will tremble, but the Lord will be a refuge for his people, a stronghold for the people of Israel. Then you will know that I, the Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. Jerusalem will be holy, never again will foreigners invade her. In that day the mountains will drip new wine, and the hills will flow with milk. All the ravines of Judah will run with water. A fountain will flow out of the Lord's house and will water the valley of acacias. But Egypt will be desolate, Edom a desert waste, because of violence done to the people of Judah, in whose land they shed innocent blood. Judah will be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem through all generations. Their blood guilt, which I have not pardoned, I will pardon. The Lord dwells in Zion.
The river described in Zechariah actually comes out of the Lord's house. The temple will be cleansed and reconsecrated, and the Lord will rule and protect forever from his holy hill in Jerusalem. Great prosperity will occur in the land of Israel, and no doubt across also in all the worshipping nations. Forgiveness will be extended where before there was only punishment. And, so we can see the cleansing of that temple is referred to before, and the Lord will rule from there. And he will come from the Mount of Olives straight across the valley and come in by the eastern gate right into the temple. Jerusalem, the city, the temple and the Lord. Let's read from quite a number of verses from various chapters in Ezekiel, chapter 10, 11, 43, and 47, 48. Just selected verses to show you what's going on.
Then the glory of the Lord departed from over the threshold of the temple and stopped above the cherubim. The glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it. Then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the visions I had seen by the Kebar River, and I fell face down. The glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the temple faced east. The water was coming down from under the south side of the temple, south of the altar. He then brought me out through the north gate and led me around the outside to the outer gate facing east, and the water was flowing from the south side. The distance all around will be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that time on will be, "The Lord is there."
The arrival of the glory of the Lord from the east, as it had left in about 490 BC because of sin. It left to the east at Mount of Olives and returns from that way. How appropriate, because where Jesus left in a cloud, described in Acts chapter 1. The new temple is described in detail in construction in chapters 40 to 42 of Ezekiel. Very much, a lot of detail. So it's known how it should be built. More detail tells us that the river described in Zechariah and Joel actually beginning from the south side of the altar and grows as it goes out into the land, and eventually reaching the seas, pushes the salty water back. That's an amazing amount of growing. The whole land becomes amazingly prosperous, and even the leaves of the trees for healing and health. This prosperity is extended to the whole earth. Lastly, the city of Jerusalem is renamed with the 8th, that's 8, new beginning, Jehovah title, Jehovah Shammah, the Lord is there. What a wonderful 1,000 years this will be. It's arranged by the Lord, and we will be involved in its administration and its prosperity. And so that's to come, something to look forward to, but live your life now. So your assignments in those responsibilities, will you be ruling over a little village, a city, a big city, a number of cities? Who knows where God will take you, but live now so that you will be rewarded and live your rulership life during the 1,000-year reign. May God really bless you.